All right, we're on lesson 2. This is our first day with the percent equation. So up at the top, you will see that there are 2 different things here. One is what you learned in 6th grade, and the other is what we are going to learn now in 7th grade. So we are no longer using what you used in 6th grade, which is part over whole equals percent over 100. So you should not be using that on your paper when we are solving percent equations anymore. Now we're going to be using part equals percent times whole, and we will sort through what each of those pieces mean, okay? A really good thing to keep in mind when we are reading is that the word part, so please put this note on your paper, part usually goes with the word is, and whole goes with the word of. So in deciphering word problems, look for those 2 words, and hopefully that helps us out. All right, so let's go down, and we're going to practice just finding the part, the percent, and the whole. And I'm going to keep the same thing as I go through all of this. So I'm going to be underlining my part, boxing in the whole, and then I'll circle the percent, okay? All right, so it says 15 is what percent of 90? The first one that you should usually be finding is percent, because that's usually the easiest one. You're either going to see the word percent or see the percent symbol. And then 15 is, so that's next to is, that should be our part. And of 90 would be the whole. I'm going to box that in. So my whole is 90. All right, let's try another one. What number is 10% of 56? So start with the percent, circle the percent, what number is, and of 56 would be my whole. Try the next one. It says 90% of a number is 180. All right, you should have circled 90% of the number, and is 180, so the number we don't know, we'll just say is X. A bag of candy contains 300 pieces, and 25% of the pieces in the bag are red. So this one's a little bit harder, just because we can't really go off of is and of. We'll find our percent first. Our whole is always going to be everything that we're looking at, okay? And our part is always a very specific piece of our whole. So if we're looking at a bag of candy that contains a total of 300 pieces, that would be our whole, all the pieces of candy. And then specifically, the part that they're asking about is how many pieces are red. So the pieces that are red is the part, 25% is the percent, and this 300 would be our whole. Next one, 70% of the students earned a B on the test. Again, we're looking at all the students' grades and then how many of them specifically got a B. So the amount that earned a B is the part. The students would be my whole, and the 70% is my percent. So all the students. So all the students' grades. The 20 girls in the class represented 55% of the students in the class. So again, we're looking at the class as a whole, and then the specific part are the girls. So the part would be the 20 girls, 55%, and the total students in the class would be the whole. All right, down below. Read each problem and complete the table to record what you know. So it says 40% of the students on the field trip love the museum. If there are 20 students on the field trip, how many love the museum? So when you read these, think carefully about what we're looking at as a whole and then what they're asking about specifically. So I'm going to have you go ahead and fill in this chart on your own, so please pause the video and do that when you're all done. Unpause the video and check your work. All right, so 40% of the students on the field trip. There are 20 students on the field trip, and we don't know how many love the museum. So our part is x, our percent is 40%, and our whole is 20. Make sure when you write your percent, you are writing it with this percent symbol until we put it into the formula, and we'll talk about that later. So 40%. If 20 students love the museum, how many are on the field trip? So total field trip goers would be x, 40% is still the percent, and 20 is the part this time. 20 students on the field trip love the museum. There are 40 students on the field trip. What percent? So the percent is x, 20 is the part, and 40 is the whole. All right, let's go to the next page. So now we're going to actually use part, percent, and whole to find missing pieces. So it says, what is 20% of 120? So remember, we're going to underline the part, box in the whole, and circle the percent. What is 20% of 120? So let's write our formula. Part equals percent times the whole. All right, so what we're going to do on the side of our paper is going to be our little cheat sheet. So whenever we have a formula, we like to set up a little cheat sheet off to the side so that we know where and what we are plugging in for each thing. So the part is that what is, so we don't know the part, so therefore we're going to plug in x for the part. The percent is 20%. However, we cannot plug in 20% into the formula. We have to change 20% to a decimal. So remember, we're going to divide 20 by 100, or we can just use the calculator and do 20 in the percent button and press enter, and it'll give us the decimal of 0.2. And we can also, as another little note, move the decimal 2 spaces to the left. Our whole is 120. So that's our little cheat sheet off to the side. Now I'm going to go ahead and take those and put them directly into the problem. So part is x equals, notice that I am writing it directly under the correct pieces in the formula. So x equals my percent, so 0.2, times my whole 120. Remember, numbers in parentheses mean multiply. So x equals, and I'm going to do 0.2 times 120. It's going to give me 24, and that's my final answer. Let's try it again. It says 12 is what percent of 80? So 12 is what percent of 80? So I'm going to set up my formula. Part equals percent times whole. And my cheat sheet, part equals, percent equals, and whole equals. Now remember, these are your notes, so you should have everything that I have on this paper on your paper as well. So the part is 12. We don't know the percent, so that's x, and 80 is our whole. I'm going to box that in, and I'm going to plug it in. So part is 12, so right underneath it, equals my percent x whole, plugging in 80. Now, all of my problems are not going to be exactly the same. I cannot just multiply here. We just went through our whole unit on how to solve equations. This is x times 80, so that means I have to divide both sides by 80. All right, so 12 divided by 80 is going to give us 0.15 equals x. But 0.15 is in decimal form. It is not in percent form. So if I type 0.15 into the calculator, so in calc, if I type in 0.15 and then I hit the second button, percent, it's going to look like this, 0.15 with a little arrow, percent. And it'll give me 15 as a percent, which is 15%. But I can also know that if I just take this decimal and move it 2 spaces, it'll give me the percent. So when it's asking me for a percent, I just have to do a couple extra things. All right, next problem. In Ty's math class, 20% of students earned an A on the test. If there were 30 students in the class, how many got an A? All right, so let's think about this. There are a total of 30 students. Well, all the students in the class would be the whole. Specifically, they're looking at the amount that got an A on the test, and 20% of them got an A. All right, so I need my formula. Part equals percent times whole. And I'm going to write my cheat sheet. Part equals percent equals whole. So my part is how many got an A. I don't know that. My percent, 20%. But remember, we have to change that to a decimal. So that's going to be 0.2. And my whole is 30. So let's plug that in. So x equals 0.2 times 30. X equals 6. So 6 of the students got an A on the test. All right, next page. Exercise 1. In Ty's art class, 12% of the Flag Day art projects receive a perfect score. There were 25 art projects turned in by Ty's class. How many of the art projects earned a perfect score? All right, I'm going to let you go ahead, try this one on your own, so please pause the video. When you're all set, unpause and check. So you should have 12%. You're finding out how many got a perfect score. There are 25 total art projects. So part equals x, percent equals 12%, which we have to change to a decimal, so 0.12. And the whole is the total amount of people in the class, 25. So let's plug that into our formula. Part equals percent times whole. X equals 0.12 times 25 equals 3. So 3 people in the class got a perfect score. Right. Down below. This one says, in Ty's English class, 70% of the students completed the essay by the due date. There are 30 students in Ty's English class. How many completed the essay by the due date? All right, again, I'm going to have you go ahead and try this one on your own. So pause the video when you're all set, unpause and check. There are 30 students. We are looking for how many completed it by the due date. So part equals percent times whole. And I'm going to identify with my cheat sheet off to the side. We are finding the part. We have 70%, but we have to change that to a decimal. So 0.7 is what we will plug in. And the whole equals 30. Because we can't plug in a percent in our formula. So x equals 0.7 times 30. When I multiply them out, x equals 21. All right, that is all for this lesson. Good luck on your homework. Now be mindful on your homework, you must show all the work that we did in class, including this little cheat sheet off to the side. So if you don't have that on your paper, you will not get full credit. All right, good luck.